"Do not laugh when the pig laughs." That was the first line on the poster. Blunt, printed in a red soiled with age, it looked like old blood. I should have folded the paper and walked away. Instead, I carried it home like evidence, like a bone I couldn't stop gnawing at in the dark. I'm telling you this because I need you to know I wasn't looking for trouble. I was curious. Curiosity is a small, polite thing until it isn't. The night I found the poster, I had come back from the river. The air was still cold enough to sting the inside of my nose, and the street lamps threw halos of dust that moved like tiny ghosts. The poster was stapled to a telephone pole outside the closed pawn shop, half torn, the words "The Cursed Pig Show," stacked in a serif font that felt older than the town itself. There was a picture beside the type, a face like a joke gone wrong, pig snout, human folds, a mouthful of needle teeth, smiling as if it meant it. I hung on to that smile all the way back to my apartment. It's strange how a single image can rearrange the furniture in your head. Suddenly, every shadow in my hallway seemed to breathe, every floorboard to remember weight. I remember the smell before the sound. A faint thing, like wet straw and iron, like the inside of a barn that's been left to learn its own rot. I told myself it was the poster reacting to the weather, not something following me. The next day, I walked toward the location printed at the bottom, an old fairground a few ridges out of town, closed for decades. The path to it had been reclaimed by grass, and each step shoved up the scent of damp leaves and the metallic tang that had first reached me at the river. Twigs cracked like tiny dry bones, and when I stopped moving, the woods answered with a long, low silence that felt like someone holding their breath beside me. At the gate, a rusted arch where the letters of the fair's name sagged. I hesitated, because that's what we do when the world asks us to choose. I pushed through anyway, and the air inside was different, heavier. The carousel, frozen in place, was a row of animals gone pale with neglect, eyes clouded, mouths worked into permanent mid-cry. Overhead, pennants snapped in a wind I couldn't feel on my face. Somewhere inside the shadow of the main tent, a sound began. A soft, sudden rustle, like a throat clearing. It wasn't any animal I knew. It was smaller than a human laugh, but higher, and it ended with a wet, delighted squeal. My hand found the poster in my coat pocket as if drawn. The ink on the red letters seemed to pulse. I should have left then. Instead, I stepped toward the tent, and with each footstep the laugh crept closer. Patient, amused, like a thing that had been waiting for me to realize the rules. The closer I got to the tent, the more the air began to feel thick, like walking through someone's breath. The laughter inside came and went, short bursts of joy that curdled halfway through, like something trying to imitate a human sound, but missing the rhythm. I remember standing in front of the tent's entrance, the canvas trembling ever so slightly, and seeing that the flaps weren't tied shut. They were waiting. When I stepped inside, the smell hit me first. The stench of spoiled meat and wet sawdust, thick enough to taste. There were lanterns, old and yellowed, hanging from the ceiling by rusty hooks. They flickered as if they were breathing with me. The ground was soft and uneven, and each step I took sank a little, as if the earth wanted to swallow my weight. Rows of wooden benches curved around an empty ring. I could hear something moving under the dirt, slow, deliberate, like something dragging itself toward the surface. And then the laughter came again, clearer this time. It was right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Only the whisper of the tent fabric moving, brushing my shoulder like fingers. But when I turned back, there was something in the center of the ring, a shape hunched over, illuminated by the dull lantern light. Its skin glistened like raw fat, pale and wrinkled. I thought it was a man in a costume at first, until it raised its head. The snout was real. The eyes, too small for its face, shimmered like marbles sunk in flesh. Its mouth opened far too wide, showing rows of wet, serrated teeth, too many for any living thing. It laughed again, and the sound tore through the tent like a scream trying to disguise itself as joy. I stumbled backward. My heel hit one of the benches, and I went down hard, my flashlight skidding out of reach. The pig thing, the cursed pig, I guess, began to crawl toward me, its movements jerky and wrong, as if it were learning how to use its body while it moved. I remember the smell, that same metallic rot, growing sharper until it burned my throat. It stopped just a few feet away, head tilting in a strangely human way, like it was studying me. Then, in a guttural, trembling voice, it said, "Laugh." I froze. Its grin widened, stretching skin until it cracked. "Laugh for the show," it hissed, and I realized it wasn't a request, it was a command. I forced a laugh, trembling, dry, empty. The thing leaned closer, its hot breath washing over me, heavy with decay. It seemed pleased. Then the ground beneath the ring started to move. Something was writhing below, dozens of shapes shifting under the dirt, pressing upward like worms in the light. The pig creature lifted its head and squealed, not in joy, but in some kind of ritualistic signal. The lanterns flickered wildly, and the tent walls pulsed like veins filled with blood. That's when I saw them. Faces, dozens of them, half buried in the dirt. Human faces, their mouths stretched into the same silent scream, eyes glazed but alive, twitching. Some of them were still moving their lips, mouthing something I couldn't hear. The pig crouched beside one of them, lifted its head gently with a hand that was too human, and whispered something to it before biting down, tearing off half its face in a spray of black, congealed blood. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I crawled backward toward the exit, but the tent seemed longer than before, the flaps impossibly far. Behind me, the laughter multiplied, not just the pigs, but a chorus of voices, human and not, giggling in perfect rhythm, as if the entire tent were laughing at me. And beneath that laughter, I could hear something else. A voice, soft, familiar, whispering right in my ear, "Now it's your turn." I remember thinking, with a terrible clarity, that there are moments when the world narrows to a single instruction, and nothing else exists but the pressure of it. The tense laughter braided itself into my pulse and my knees. I crawled, hands raw from the grit, toward the place the pig had chosen, the center of the ring, now a shallow pit where the dirt had been turned into a maw. The faces in the soil stared up at me with patient hunger. Their lips moved in time with the lanterns. Somewhere, a wooden gear clicked, as if the fairground itself wound tighter around my ribs. The pig, if that name still meant anything, smiled as I climbed the rim. It smelled of iron and sugar, of old funerals and county fairs. When I reached the lip of the pit, it pushed me down by the shoulders with more gentleness than terror. It moved like an experienced host. I fell into the cold embrace of the dirt and the faces, and for a second, I couldn't tell whether I was awake or the last shiver of a dream. Hands, my hands, other hands, folded my arms behind me. The faces whispered things I recognized as my own embarrassments, my small cruelties, the private things I'd believed were selfish and mine. They spoke them aloud as if to warm up an audience. Then the pig leaned close and licked along my jaw. The skin where it touched felt thin, like the last page of a book. "Perform," it breathed, and the word tasted like metal. I tried to protest, but the sound that came out of me was already wearing another face. My lips stretched, not with effort, but as if something beneath them unzipped and rearranged itself. A laugh slipped out, not mine, layered with someone else's memories, someone who had learned to laugh while something else broke inside them. The pit cheered in muffled earthen claps. The lanterns swelled, and the tent seemed to lean in. I remember thinking of the poster on the telephone pole, the blunt warning I had laughed at like a joke. I remember how small my choices had always seemed until I saw the true cost. My throat filled with the taste of other people's fear and old blood. I felt teeth at the corner of my mouth, not mine, and tasted the wetness of a smile that had been taught by aching hunger. Then the pig pressed its forehead against mine and said, with absurd tenderness, "Now you will know the best part." The tent's chorus swelled. The faces in the dirt smiled with me. I looked down and saw that my reflection in a puddle below was wrong. My mouth held too many teeth. The grin was wider than it had any right to be. I tried to feel shame, to tear it off, but the thing that controlled the laugh was patient and precise. It would keep me for as long as an audience needed me. It laughed once, clean and bright, and the sound left my body like a promise. It laughs with my mouth.
Subscribe to Horror Story Bar.